The chamber carved into the heart of Novel Prime buzzed with shock and alarm. Commander Trell of the Zircon fleet slammed a data tablet onto the table, its edges crackling from the impact. Around him, officers from 7 different species leaned forward, their various appendages twitching nervously as the hologram flickered to life. The footage showed thick clouds rolling across an angry red sky. Lightning flashed in strange patterns, setting fire to spiky tree-like structures. Across the broken landscape, armored figures moved through the chaos as if taking a casual walk. "Impossible," whispered Director Soren of the Meridian Collective. "No species survives there. That planet is death itself." Commander Trell tapped the tablet again. The footage zoomed closer. Humans in sleek battle gear sprinted through rivers of molten slag, jumping over blackened rocks. Their laughter could be heard even through the distortion. One stocky soldier with soot across his helmet turned and waved at the camera before vanishing into the smoke. "They call it the Crucible. It's just one of many training grounds," Trell explained quietly. Marshal Kren of the Lexan Assembly shifted uncomfortably, his insect-like mouth parts clicking anxiously. "That's a forbidden death world. No atmospheric protection, no terraforming. Why would they send troops there?" "Not just troops," Trell corrected. "Recruits." The room fell silent except for the soft hum of air systems. For species that considered moderate gravity deadly and mild acid rain a war crime, the idea that humans willingly trained on such worlds was unthinkable. "This isn't the only site," Trell continued. "We intercepted footage from locations they call Raven's Gap, Howler Flats, and Inferno Basin, each more deadly than the last. No species but humans even visit these places, let alone survive them." The images shifted. One clip showed a sandstorm so thick it stripped paint from armored vehicles in minutes. Another showed rain so caustic it dissolved metal in seconds. In both, humans moved without hesitation, adapting, thriving, laughing. "What madness is this?" Director Soren recoiled. "Adaptation," Trell replied. "They expose their young to it early. Completing training on these worlds is considered an honor among their warriors. Failure means death." "What do they gain from this?" "Glory?" Kren asked. Trell shook his head. "Resilience. Conditioning that creates soldiers no other species can. Match in endurance, speed, reaction time, or sheer determination." He tapped the pad one final time. A last video played, a human, battered and bleeding, dragging a fallen comrade across a field of glass-like shards. Enemy fire rained down, but the soldier didn't flinch. Instead, he shielded his companion with his own body, took 3 hits to his armor, and kept moving. Finally, he collapsed behind a broken ridge, grinning at the sky as if he'd won a prize. General Moran of the Plex Alliance leaned forward, his massive bulk making the ancient chair creak. "You're telling us they break themselves to become unbreakable?" Trell gave a humorless smile. "Yes." An uncomfortable silence spread through the gathered commanders. They had all faced humans in skirmishes, but reports had been inconsistent. Some claimed humans were slow but terrifyingly persistent. Others said they were chaotic and unpredictable, making logical tactics useless. Still others spoke of soldiers who fought for days without rest, surviving wounds that should have killed them within minutes. Now it made sense. "We must prepare our forces differently," Kren said. "Standard tactics won't work." Trell nodded. "Worse yet, intelligence suggests they're escalating. New recruits are being sent to even harsher training grounds, places our own life forms can't survive for more than a few minutes." A wave of unease passed across the gathered leaders. They understood what this meant. Battles would no longer be decided by superior firepower or better technology. They would be decided by who could endure the longest, suffer the most, and still keep moving. And the humans had been preparing for that kind of war for centuries. "This changes everything," Soren rasped. "Correct," Trell said. "Effective immediately. The High Council advises all operations involving humans be reassessed. Engaging them directly should be considered a last resort. Kren clicked his mandibles thoughtfully. Last resort or never? Trell said nothing. He didn't need to. In the silence, each alien leader faced an uncomfortable truth. Humans weren't merely another species to conquer or negotiate with. They were something far worse. They were survivors, and they had been training for a galaxy that wasn't ready for them. Later, Trell stood alone at the massive viewport overlooking Novel Prime's crimson plains. He barely noticed Director Soren approaching, his footsteps a dry scrape against the polished stone floor. "You withheld something," Soren said. Trell didn't turn around. "I withheld many things, most of which you wouldn't want to know. I require the full assessment." Without a word, Trell tapped a command into his wrist console. A different recording appeared, visible only to them. Unlike the earlier footage, this showed no training grounds or death worlds. It was simple. A human standing atop a ruined observation post, battered armor scorched black, raising a tattered flag over what remained of a battlefield. Around him, the terrain was barely recognizable as a planet anymore. "They call it Reclaimer. Training," Trell said. "A final test for their elite. They simulate apocalyptic conditions, collapsed ecosystems, dead oceans, radiation storms. Then they send squads in with no support, no supplies. They are told only one thing: endure." "And they survive?" Soren asked. Trell nodded. "Not all, but enough." For a moment, even Soren, hardened by centuries of conquest, said nothing. Finally he spoke, voice low. "Then our fleets are not prepared for what's coming." "No," Trell agreed. "They are not." Across the galaxy, on a neutral space station orbiting the planet Thaxus, rumors of human capabilities spread through dim corridors where mercenaries, spies, and warlords traded more than just goods. At a scratched table in the back, 3 officers from different species huddled together, speaking in hushed tones. "2 platoons of Corvan soldiers," hissed one with metallic scales, "wiped out by a squad of humans half their number on Raven's Gap." A lean figure with iridescent feathers shook his head. "I heard worse. A Jiran scout said humans walked across the sulfur fields of Endar Prime without protection suits. By the time the Jiran teams caught up, half their ranks were hallucinating or dead." A scarred reptilian warrior snorted. "Lies. Propaganda." The first leaned closer. "You think so? Then tell me why the Jiran Empire is suddenly retreating from every border world where humans operate." The scarred one opened his mouth to argue but stopped. There had been too many whispers, too many unexplained retreats, too many shattered fleets and abandoned strongholds. The fear was real. Meanwhile, aboard the human fleet command vessel Vanguard, preparations for the next phase of training were underway. Inside the massive hangar bays, hundreds of new recruits stood in formation, eyes forward, feet planted firmly, faces grim. Their instructor, Captain Haynes, walked slowly down the line. His armor bore the marks of campaigns most of these recruits had only heard about in briefings. He paused before a soldier whose helmet showed a fresh burn mark. "Ready to die, recruit?" Haynes asked. The young man met his gaze without blinking. "Not today, sir." Haynes gave a small approving nod. "Good. You'll need that attitude where we're sending you." He turned to address the entire group. "You've made it through the Crucible. You've crossed Howler Flats. You've survived Inferno Basin. And now you get the honor of completing your training on Helios 5. A ripple went through the ranks. Part excitement, part dread. Helios 5 wasn't officially listed in any human registry. That was because no sane species kept records of places designed solely for destruction. Its surface shifted constantly from earthquakes. Its oceans boiled with poisonous creatures. Its skies rained glass and ash. Haynes smiled like someone offering an impossible challenge. "You'll have 72 hours, No rescue, no supplies beyond what you carry. Survive, adapt, improvise. If you make it, you're one of us. And if we don't? Someone asked. Haynes shrugged. Then you don't. There was no ceremony, no inspiring speeches about duty or honor. Survival was its own reward. Back on Novel Prime, the Council of Leaders met again. They debated endlessly. New armor systems, biological enhancements, psychic warfare, all designed to bridge the gap between them and the humans. None of it would be enough, not against a species trained not for domination, but for survival in its purest, most brutal form. And the humans were just getting started. Helios 5 wasn't a world. It was a furnace. It spun slowly in space, scarred by ancient asteroid impacts, torn open by deep planetary wounds, spewing vaporized metal into its thin, poisonous atmosphere. The human dropships approached silently, slipping beneath the storm bands. Inside Transport 17, Sergeant Jensen checked the straps of his harness one last time, then looked at the new recruits around him. Their armor was scratched, their faces tired, but none showed fear. Fear had been left behind on safer worlds. 30 seconds, the pilot announced. Jensen stood, grabbing the overhead rail as the craft shook violently. A stream of burning gas shot past the window. One recruit flinched. Jensen didn't even blink. He remembered his own first drop onto Helios 5, 12 people in his squad. Only 5 had made it out. The rest had been swallowed by the planet's many dangers, rock slides, acid geysers, deadly creatures mutated by impossible conditions. The hatch opened with a hiss. Roaring winds hit them, carrying the smell of burning minerals and decay. Without hesitation, Jensen launched himself into the chaos, his squad following close behind. Training began the moment their boots hit the ground. The recruits scattered. As planned, seeking high ground, shelter, vantage points. The planet responded instantly. Tremors rippled beneath their feet. Acid rain began to fall, each drop hissing where it touched the rocky soil. Jensen smiled beneath his helmet. Welcome to Hell. Far above, aboard the alien battleship Crown of Ages, Strategic Commander Nevak studied the live feeds with growing alarm. His sensors tracked human movements across Helios 5, analyzing their patterns, stress levels, and tactical choices. "What do you see?" asked his assistant, a thin officer with pale armor plating. Nevak didn't answer at first. He leaned closer to the screen, watching as one human, barely more than a boy, ducked into a cave entrance just as a razor storm tore across the surface, shredding everything in its path. "They anticipate the planet," Nevak said finally, voice low. "Not just react to it. They think with it." The assistant clicked uncertainly. "Perhaps they have environmental data we lack." Nevak shook his head. "No. Their heart rates, their movement patterns. They behave as if chaos itself is familiar, as if they've fought not just enemies but the very worlds they stand upon." He tapped a command, shifting to another view. A team of humans, 6 strong, navigated a collapsing canyon. Instead of panicking, they moved together perfectly, building human bridges, using grapples, rappelling down with almost casual efficiency. "This is why they're dangerous," Nevak muttered. "They aren't adapting because of us. They were forged by worse things than us." Down below, Jensen watched as 3 recruits fought their way up a slick, crumbling cliff. One slipped, dangled for a terrifying second, but instead of panicking, he locked his harness, adjusted his footing, and pressed on. Good, Jensen thought. The whole point of Helios 5 wasn't survival for its own sake. It was to strip everything away, comfort, certainty, predictability, until only pure instinct remained. An instinct tuned not toward self-preservation alone, but toward completing the mission at any cost. Jensen activated his radio. "Team Bravo, status?" A crackle of static answered, then a short reply. 2 down, 4 moving, heading for rally point. Alpha. Copy. Expect heavy storm winds in 20 minutes. Understood. No begging for help, no questions. Just cold facts. Just action. Jensen moved on. Above him, storms raged. Below him, the ground cracked and smoked. Somewhere beyond the ridge, a predator howled, the sound carrying even over the shrieking winds. He smiled grimly. Another lesson was coming. Back in orbit, Nevac's assistants were less composed. Reports flooded in from listening posts, scout, ships, and secret observers stationed near human space. All painted the same picture. Escalation. Humans were colonizing more dangerous systems, conducting training exercises on active volcano worlds, simulated space battles inside asteroid fields. With real debris strikes, infantry maneuvers in collapsing methane-heavy atmospheres. At this rate, one assistant whispered, they'll be immune to everything we can throw at them. Nevac said nothing. He already knew it. The humans had no intention of matching their enemies blow for blow. They intended to survive whatever the galaxy could conjure and then deliver victory from the ruins. On Helios 5, night fell and the temperature dropped nearly 200 degrees in less than an hour. Jensen huddled against a jagged rock, listening to the radio chatter, sporadic but calm. Good. No panic yet. He checked his squad's vital signs on his wrist display. Red markers. 2 more had fallen. And yet, across the madness of this world, human signals continued blinking steadily in the darkness, flickers of stubborn, relentless life, still moving, still fighting, still surviving. Dawn on Helios 5 was no gentler than its night. The sun, a swollen red monster, barely lit the broken horizon. The world remained bathed in murky twilight full of shifting shadows and dangerous ground. Jensen knelt atop a ridge scanning the broken valley below. His armor was scored from acid rain and flying debris, but he was still standing. His wrist console blinked weakly. Only 13 recruits remained active out of nearly 200 who had dropped, and yet Jensen smiled. He activated his radio. All units converge on Rally Point Omega. We move in 1 hour. Prepare for extraction. Across the battered terrain, broken squads stirred, gathered, and pushed forward. Every injury, every lost comrade, every scar carved into their armor was carried with silent resolve. They hadn't survived Helios 5 because of luck. They had endured. Through constant adaptation, learned instincts, and a refusal to die quietly. Jensen rose and started his descent toward the meeting point. Meanwhile, aboard the Crown of Ages, Strategic Commander Nevac watched with growing certainty. His analysts calculated probabilities, ran thousands of simulations, modeled every possible tactic. None ended in true victory. Every model that considered human endurance, their ability to survive in conditions others couldn't even endure, for minutes, produced the same conclusion: extended conflict would not break them. If anything, it would only forge them harder. An assistant approached with a final report. Nevac waved him away without reading it. There was no point. Instead, he turned to the assembled council on the secure communication link. We have spent cycles trying to defeat a species that considers extinction-level environments a warm-up, he said. They build soldiers where we would lose entire colonies. They harden their young in trials that would kill our finest veterans. One council member, a broad-shelled commander, rumbled, "You suggest surrender?" Nevac's mouth curved into something resembling a smile, though no humor touched his eyes. "No. I suggest caution and distance." On the surface of Helios 5, Jensen regrouped with the survivors at Omega Ridge. The terrain was no less hostile here. Pits of boiling tar, geysers of toxic steam, but a small plateau offered a narrow window of safety. The recruits gathered around him, faces smeared with soot and dirt. Jensen walked the line, pausing before each one, studying them carefully. "You've been tested," he said, voice rough from smoke and dust. "Not by enemies, not by simulations, but by the galaxy itself." The men stood straighter, battered but unbroken. "You," Didn't beat this planet, Jensen continued. You survived it. That's what matters. That's what makes you soldiers. Overhead, the extraction ships punched through the cloud layer, their engines struggling against the crosswinds. Jensen glanced, up then back at his squad. This is just the beginning, he said. Remember that. The survivors filed into the transports, their damaged armor clanking against the metal floors. Jensen lingered for a moment, surveying the battlefield one last time. All around, the world seethed with rage and ruin. And yet the humans had endured. Back on Novel Prime, the Council of Leaders convened one final time. The walls of the ancient war chamber seemed to press in tighter than ever before. Each leader had seen the reports, the footage, the brutal statistics. Commander Trell stood before them, composed but cold. You all wanted to understand human military dominance, he said. Now you do. He tapped a control pad. A hologram flared to life, not of battle, not of weapons, but of training grounds, of humans crawling across burning glass plains, marching through caustic storms, diving into freezing oceans without hesitation. This is where their true strength lies, Trell said. Before they fire a single shot, before they draw a single blade, they have already won the most important battle. The council remained silent. Finally, Director Soren spoke. We must prepare. Countermeasures. Trell shook his head slowly. Prepare all you want. It won't change them. It won't change what they've become. Marshal Kren leaned forward, mandibles clicking. Then what is your recommendation? Trell stared at the hologram of a human soldier, alone atop a shattered mountain, waving a signal beacon against hurricane-force winds. My recommendation, Trell said. Don't provoke them. Ever. The council dissolved into murmured debates, strategies, and theories. But deep down, each leader knew it. Nothing they created would erase the truth. The humans had trained for survival not because they expected fairness from the galaxy, but because they knew it would never come. And so they trained harder, pushed, farther, broke themselves, and rebuilt stronger, over and over again. Where others built warriors, humans built survivors. And in a universe that cared nothing for the strong but everything for the enduring, that made them the deadliest force the stars had ever seen. As the council session ended, Trell stood alone by the viewport, gazing into the night sky. He imagined distant planets, distant battles yet to come, distant empires trembling in the dark. The humans were still out there, still training, still enduring, still preparing for a war that most species hadn't even realized had already begun.